I never believed in this stuff. My mother used to say, "Son, people don't live in blind streets. Something else does." I'd laugh. But one night, I went into that street. After what I saw, I stopped laughing. This was in the old part of Karachi. Crumbling flats, narrow streets, a jungle of wires. When the power cut, the whole neighborhood would hold its breath. I worked nights for a medical supply company. I'd get home a little after 2. My route turned a corner, then ran straight into this long, narrow, black stretch everyone called the Blind Street. People said bulbs never survived there, smashed by morning. Fresh paint got smeared with soot by someone's hand at night. I ignored it, turned my key, shut the door, slept. The third night I heard it. At the corner, a cold gust came, salty, like the sea exhaling. And then someone called my name, Hamza. Just once, soft, drawn out. I froze. The street swallowed sound. I lifted my phone's light. Nothing behind me. Fatigue, I told myself. But my heart knew I'd heard my mother's voice. I went home, double-locked the door. Still, I kept jerking awake. A rattle at the door, a breath by the window. Morning came. I swore if I heard it again, I'd ignore it. A short, dry laugh that dies quickly. We promise a lot when the sun's up. Next night, same time, same cold wind. Again that whisper, Hamza, come here. Different tone, no warmth, hoarse, like a throat pinched shut. I inhaled, and for the first time stepped into the blind street. The dark was so thick it threw my light back at me. Old photos clung to the walls. Neighborhood parties, school functions, all smeared black. Some had long nail scratches scored across them, patient and precise, like someone's quiet midnight hobby. Further in stood an old wooden door, half broken and sagging. In chalk it said, "Don't knock." I thought, kids, a prank. I turned to go, and 3 slow knocks came from inside. Something cold slid down my spine. A pale light bled under the door, and then I saw them. 2 bare feet on the other side, caked in black mud, toes packed with grit. They shifted as if someone paced there, but there was no sound. "Open the door!" The voice came from behind me, not inside. I spun. Empty street, wind and water dripping far away. When I faced the door again, it creaked open by itself. I lifted my phone light and looked in, and I swear, there wasn't a room behind the door. There was another street, my street, duplicated. Same walls, same wires, same posters. Only that one was bright, bulbs humming steadily. At the far end, someone walked toward me. Me, same shirt, same shoes, same breath. He came right up to the threshold and stared at me. Not like a mirror. This wasn't glass. He moved his lips. "I'm inside. So who are you?" My phone slid in my hand. The air thickened like water. Before I could speak, the light died. Darkness. You could hear your own breath like a weight. And then, a hand on my shoulder. Long nails, cold fingers. The palm, wet. I tried to scream. Nothing. The hand crept up my neck, and a whisper grazed my ear. "Don't look." I turned. No one. Damp smell, silent wood. The door slammed shut. Bang! And I collapsed. Footsteps pattered past me to the door and stopped behind it. After that came whispering. Many voices at once, like a quiet meeting. I couldn't catch the words except sometimes my name, Hamza. Somehow I ran, turned the corner, reached my flat, locked everything. The clock said 2:55. Water tasted salty when I gulped it. In the morning, my shoes, the ones I'd worn through the street, were inside the door, upside down, crusted with that same foul mud. On the threshold, 3 dark finger marks, as if someone inside had pushed. I told no one at work. When my mother called, I told her half. She went very quiet. "Beta, what called you knew your name?" "That's when we've been calling them first. Speaking of them, keeping their names alive. I thought I never did. Then remembered how the boys in the neighborhood joked about the blind street, made little videos, egged each other on. Maybe we kept the name, and the name kept us. That night, I stood again at the corner. The door waited, patient and tilted. But the chalk had changed. It now read, Bell, 3:33. I checked my watch. 3:15, 18 minutes. I went closer. No light underneath. The floor showed a smudged line where toes once pressed, wiped with a damp hand. I took a small iron nail from my pocket and scratched a mark into the wood. Proof I'd been here. Proof I'd wake to tomorrow. 3 knocks answered. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. A text. Don't go. Wait till 3:33. My hand went slick. I called back. Busy, then cut. Footsteps approached behind me. A tall man with a paper bag. He startled. Brother? Here? I forced a smile. I live across. You? Nearby, he said, smile tight. Shortcut. Ever hear anything inside? I asked. He blinked. Never stay here at 3:33. He walked past fast, not looking at the door. I glanced down. His shoes weren't bare, but black mud clung to the soles, like he'd come through that door he never glanced at. 3:30? I waited. Heart saying run, mind saying 3 minutes. 3:31, 3:32. My breathing got loud. At 3:33, the door eased open. Just a sliver. I leaned to the crack. Inside, the bright twin of my street. The photos were clean there. The bulbs were steady. And from the far end, I walked toward me. Again. But this time, something walked behind me. A shadow, tall, hunched. When the other me breathed, the shadow fogged too. He reached the doorway and I whispered, Who are you? He barely moved his mouth. I'm inside. So who are you? Then the shadow put its hand on his shoulder, the very way one had touched mine. He turned and smiled. Not human. Half pity, half hunger. The door opened toward me. A gust blew, salty, rotten, with a faint old perfume, like someone trying to mask decay. Somewhere, slow dripping. The shadow set 3 wet finger marks on the threshold. I don't belong here, I shouted. Voices rose from inside, overlapping like leaves in wind. One sounded like my father. Go home, Hamza. My father had been dead 6 years. I stumbled back. The door slammed. 3:34. Another text. You did right. Don't come again. I ran home. Locked everything twice. Tap water tasted bitter. In the mirror, dark circles, a thin red scratch at the exact spot the cold hand had stroked. I pulled the nail from my pocket. A black crust on it. Mud. But the smell wasn't the sea anymore. Just rot. I threw it away. For 2 nights, I took the longer road. Safe. Except at 3:33, my own house began to speak. Soft knocking, tock, tock, tock. A wet line at the threshold. The same damp smell, salted at the edges. I set an alarm for 3:32. I'd wake before it started, hold my breath, and wait it out. On the 3rd night at exactly 3:33, a lullaby floated past my window, the one my mother used to hum. I parted the curtain. Outside was my street, not the blind one, but a mist lay over it. In the mist stood the old door, and on it, in chalk, Hamza is home. I broke, texted the unknown number. Who are you? 2 minutes later, whoever opens the door stays inside. Why are you calling me? I wrote. We don't call, it answered. You here? I tried to be normal, stayed over at friends, earplugs, prayers. Still sometimes 3 fresh muddy finger marks waited by morning, or a thin chalk line on the window pane. The cleaner laughed. Sir, kids playing at night. I laughed too, with that same tightness I had seen in the tall man. I went to Maulana Haris. He sits in the inner courtyard, listens, speaks little. I told him part of it, a door in a blind street, a reflection that isn't a mirror, the knocking at 3:33. He listened a long time, then said, "Son, some doors don't open from our side. They open from the other. When we look that way, they see us too. You've seen them now, so don't show yourself. At 3:33, no window, no door, only breath and God's name. Give it time. They'll forget you." So now, every night at 3:33, I wake. I breathe slow. I don't look at the window. I don't touch the threshold. The phone stays dark. Some nights I press my ear to the door. Far away under the salt wind, inside an old lullaby, beneath layered whispers, I still hear my name. Hamza. I don't answer. Last week, my downstairs neighbor Assad said, "Hey, is it true there's an old door at the end of our street?" Someone filmed it. I lowered my eyes and told him softly, "If you ever see it, don't stay there at 3:33. And if someone calls your name, it isn't you they're calling." A long breath, then quiet. I don't walk the blind street anymore. But some mornings, 3 faint marks bloom again on my threshold, and in a pocket I swear I closed, I'll find a thin stick of chalk. I snap it and throw it out the window. The wind rises from below with that sea salt edge, and I feel far away a door opening, and a voice very softly saying, "You've heard enough. We don't call you now. You'll hear us anyway." 5 seconds of silence. End. The door in the blind street. I've always loved children. Maybe that's why, when my son was born, I bought him the most beautiful toys. Bright, colorful, harmless little things. But one toy felt different. A talking rabbit. White fur, blue eyes. A tiny speaker on its neck. When you pressed the button, it said, greater than, "Hello, I'm your friend." In the beginning, my son loved it. He'd laugh every time it spoke and fall asleep with it tucked beside him. But after 3 weeks, everything changed. One night, I heard the voice again. "Hello, I'm your friend." I looked at the clock, 3 a.m. My son was fast asleep. I went into his room. The rabbit sat beside his bed, speaking by itself. I thought maybe the button got pressed. I switched it off, removed the batteries. Silence the next night. Again. This time the voice was heavier, slower, greater than, "Hello, I know you." I checked. The batteries were gone, completely empty inside. I froze. I packed the rabbit in a box and shoved it into the kitchen cabinet. But in the morning, it was back beside my son's bed. I told myself he must have taken it out. I asked, "Sweetheart, did you get the rabbit?" He didn't smile. He just said softly, greater than, "Mama, it comes on its own. It says it's lonely." Something cold settled inside me. That night, I decided to throw it away. I put it in a plastic bag and tossed it into the trash bin at the corner of our street. It was raining. I felt relieved. But the next morning, the same bag sat outside my door. From inside came that voice, greater than, "Hello, I'm back." I broke down. I grabbed the bag and threw it into the burning pit near the construction site. Watched the smoke rise, saw the rabbit melt. I wanted it gone. Done. But the story didn't end. That night when I tucked my son into bed, he asked, greater than, "Mama, why didn't my friend come today?" I said, "He's gone, baby." He shook his head. "No, he's sitting by the stairs. He said you lied." I held him tight. "Go to sleep, sweetheart." But he whispered, "He's angry now. He said he won't talk to me anymore. He'll talk to you." I kept the lamp on all night. In the morning, my phone rang, unknown number. I answered and heard that same voice, greater than, "Hello, I'm your friend." I dropped the phone. My son woke up, rubbing his eyes, and he said, greater than, "Mama, he's looking for you now." The next day, I sent my son to his grandmother's house. I came home alone. The house was quiet. I made tea in the kitchen, turned dash, and saw it. The rabbit sat on the table. My hands shook. I grabbed it by the ears and screamed, "Who are you?" "What do you want?" The speaker crackled, greater than, "I'm the one you left behind. I'm not your son's friend." "I'm yours." I slammed it on the floor. Its ear snapped off. A smell of burnt plastic filled the air. I stepped back, and the lights went out. darkness. Then the voice again, closer, deeper, greater than, "You thought I was just a toy? You called me yourself. The night you said, I wish someone would never leave me." My knees weakened. I ran toward the door. Locked. Something cold brushed my shoulder. I screamed, turned. Nothing there. But on the floor, the rabbit lay still. Its blue eyes glowed faintly. From its speaker came a distorted giggle, greater than, "He, he. I'll never leave you alone." I left that house that night. My son still lives with my mother. We moved. New place, new toys. None of them talk. But sometimes, late at night, my phone turns on by itself. And I hear that voice again, greater than, "Hello, I'm your friend." When I hang up, a faint laugh drifts from my son's room. I rush to check Dash Dash. His bed is empty. Only a small white hair lies on the pillow. Soft, like rabbit fur. Silence. Then faint, childlike laughter echoes. End. The Talking Toy. I've always loved old things, radios, phones, gramophones. They weren't just objects to me. They were doors to time. Maybe that love is what led me to the thing that changed my life forever. Last year, on a quiet Sunday afternoon, I was wandering through an old flea market. Dusty stalls, rusted radios, piles of cracked cassettes. And there, I saw it, an old tape recorder. A small note taped on it read, "Greater than model 1974, voice memory recorder." I asked the shopkeeper, "Does it still work?" He said, "It works, sir, but the sound doesn't stop." I laughed. "What do you mean?" He lowered his voice. "Whenever it records, an extra voice appears by itself." I smiled, shrugged it off, paid him, and brought it home. That night, I placed it on my table, inserted an old cassette, and pressed play. Click. First, silence. Then a faint hiss. And suddenly, my own voice. Testing. 1, 2, 3. I laughed. "It works!" Then a pause, and through the static dash, a faint woman's voice, greater than, "Can you hear me?" I froze. I stopped the recorder immediately, rewound it, played it again. My voice first, then hers. It was definitely a woman. Soft, but clear. I thought maybe it was an old recording stuck on the tape. I pulled the cassette out, completely blank. The next night, curiosity got the better of me. I put in another tape, pressed record, and said, "Greater than, is anyone here?" A few seconds of silence, and then I stopped the recording. Pressed play. First my voice, then hers. "Greater than, I'm right here, behind you." I turned around instantly. No one. But the room had gone cold. The red recording light on the machine was still glowing. The next day, I went back to the market. The stall was gone. I asked around. The other sellers said, "There's never been anyone here by that name." That night, I decided to use it one last time. I sat close to the mic and whispered, "Greater than, who are you? What do you want?" No response. Then the recorder clicked by itself. It switched to play. This time it wasn't a woman's voice. It was a little girl's. "Greater than, Mama says don't listen. She's not alive anymore." My heart stopped. I yanked the tape out, threw it on the floor. It shattered, but the speaker still played. "Why did you break me? Now you'll have to hear my story." The fan stopped spinning. Air stilled. The temperature dropped like ice, and the recorder began to speak on its own. "Greater than, this house was mine. I lived here with my mother. One night I was recording a song on this tape recorder. Then the fire started. My mother survived. I didn't. My voice stayed inside. I whispered, trembling, "Greater than, can I free you?" The voice replied, "Greater than, no. You've heard me now. That means I'm with you." I hurled the recorder against the wall. It went silent. I collapsed from exhaustion. When I woke up the next morning, it was sitting neatly back on my desk. Perfectly fine. Beside it lay a new tape. A handwritten label said, "Do not listen." Of course, I did, at first, Silence. Then my own voice, greater than, "Can you free me?" And then her voice, greater than, "No, I am you." I turned to the mirror, and behind my reflection stood another shadow. I locked the recorder in an old chest, but after that night, every sound I heard, the hum of the fan, the rustle of air, seemed to carry my own voice within it. Last night my phone buzzed. A notification greater than "new voice memo saved." I hadn't recorded anything. I opened it. Nothing inside. Plugged in my earphones. Pressed play. First silence. Then that same voice again. Greater than, "Did you think I'd stop? It's your turn now." I threw the phone across the room. The light flickered, and from under the bed came a whisper. Soft, deliberate, almost playful. "Tomorrow when you try to speak, your voice won't come out, because now you've been recorded." Silence. Then the slow whir of an old tape starting up. A faint voice echoes through the static, greater than, "This is my last recording. End the old tape recorder." I used to work the night shift at an old cemetery. My post was near the main gate, right beside the guardroom. There was another watchman with me, Fayaz. He was in his 50s, quiet by nature. A man who spoke little but whose tired eyes always seemed to be hiding something unspoken. Our shift started at 8 at night and ended at 6 in the morning. We'd place 2 chairs by the gate, a rusted metal table between them, a lantern, 2 cups of tea, and a register for the night's log. Fayaz always brought a 3rd chair. The first night I asked him, "Why the extra one?" He glanced at me, then said quietly, "For the guest." I laughed. "What kind of guest visits a cemetery at this hour?" He said, "The ones who can't come during the day." I thought he was joking. The first 3 nights were normal. Tea, talk, and stray dogs barking in the distance. But on the 4th night, the air felt heavier, as if something unseen had settled over the gate. The tube light flickered 3 times, then died. Fayaz said calmly, "Light the lantern. The guest will be here soon." I frowned. "What guest, Fayaz Bhai?" He just smiled, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Around midnight, a faint clinking sound came from inside the cemetery, like a chain being dragged across the ground. I froze. "What was that?" Fayaz took a slow drag from his cigarette. "Listen first," he said. "In places like this, you hear them before you see them." I shone my torch into the graveyard. Between the graves, something moved. Faint, slow, but the light wouldn't reach that far. It was as if the darkness itself swallowed it. Then out of the mist, a man appeared, walking slowly toward the gate. His feet were caked with mud, and he wasn't coming from the road. He was coming from inside the cemetery. I stepped back. Fayaz quietly slid that 3rd chair forward and said, "Please, sir, have a seat." The man sat down. No words. His hands rested on his knees, head bowed. My throat went dry. Who is he?" Fayaz kept his eyes low. "The one whose name isn't spoken aloud." The air went still. The flame of the lantern stood straight, motionless. Then the man spoke, his voice deep, tired and distant. "Have you come to strike out 2 names tonight? Or to write them?" I looked at Fayaz. "What's he talking about?" Fayaz opened the register. Several pages were torn out. He said softly, "Whoever sits at this post must know. Someone writes the names of the living too, before dawn." I stood up angrily. "This is nonsense. Some stupid ritual." For the first time, I saw fear in Fayaz's eyes. "Sit down," he said quickly, "or your name will go up tonight." My legs went numb. From behind the gate came a faint whispering. Many voices murmuring together, too soft to make out the words. Except one line that kept repeating, "Greater than 2 chairs, 2 names." I tried to move, but my body wouldn't respond, as if the air had thickened around me. Fayaz began writing in the register, his hand trembling. Then suddenly he threw the pen away. "No," he whispered. "I'm not writing tonight." The man on the 3rd chair slowly lifted his head. For the first time, I saw his face. eyes closed, lips dry, and streaks of damp, salty earth across his cheek, as if he'd pressed against the wall of a grave. He said, "Whoever refuses to write has his own name written instead." I tried to scream, but my voice stuck in my throat. Feyyaz stood up and blew out the lantern. Darkness swallowed us whole. The whispering grew louder, chains dragging, footsteps shifting in the dust. Then a sharp thud, something hitting the ground. When I opened my eyes again, it was dawn. Pale light seeped through the mist. The gate was wide open. The third chair lay overturned. Feyyaz sat slumped on his own chair, motionless. I shook him. No response. In his hand was the register. On the last page was written, greater than name Feyyaz, date today. I ran to the guard room. People came. An ambulance was called. Everyone said the same thing. Heart attack. Poor guy. I didn't say a word, but when I turned back toward the gate, the third chair was standing upright again. In its place. No one had touched it. A cleaner came by later. I told him, "Take that chair away." He looked confused. "Sir, that chair's been there for months. Feyyaz Sahib always said, it's for the guest." Since that night, I've sat alone on my shift. I keep only one chair. No second, no third. But sometimes after midnight, the lantern lights itself. Footprints appear in the dust. Fresh, muddy, leading from inside the gate. And the old wooden chair begins to rock slowly, as if someone invisible has just taken a seat. I close my eyes, then lower my head and whisper to myself, "It's just the wind." Only the wind. But my heart never believes it, because each morning when I open the register, there's always a new line written in unfamiliar handwriting. Greater than shift night duty, visitor 1, empty chair to be kept. I always used to say fear is just imagination, but after what happened to me, I stopped looking under the stairs. It was when I was living alone, in a small old house. It wasn't big, but it had charm. Downstairs was the living room and kitchen, and a narrow staircase that led up to my bedroom. Beneath the staircase was a hollow space, too small for anything but a broom, mop, or a few storage boxes. I passed it every day, and every single time I felt a strange coldness there, like the air itself would stop moving. At first, everything was fine. Then one night, maybe the first time, I heard someone coughing from under the stairs. I froze, turned off the TV, listened. Silence. I told myself, "You're imagining things." But the next night, it happened again. A cough, and then a faint rustling like something was crawling. I gathered some courage, turned on my phone flashlight, and bent down to look. Just an empty space. A broom and a box. Nothing. I switched off the light, and right behind me a whisper said softly, "Greater than see?" "You looked." I spun around. No one. My heart started pounding so hard I could hear it. I ran to my bedroom, shut the door, and didn't sleep the whole night. The next morning I laughed at myself. Just stress, I thought. Too much work, not enough sleep. That evening I decided to clean under the stairs properly. I took out the boxes, and the broom swept every corner and even spread a little blue carpet there, so it wouldn't look so dark anymore. For a few days, everything was fine again. Then one morning I noticed something strange. The carpet was flipped upside down, and on it, wet footprints. Not small ones, large adult-sized footprints. I panicked, locked the door, and called my neighbor to check. He looked around carefully and then said, "There's an old basement under this house. It was sealed years ago. Maybe the dampness is coming from there." I asked, "A basement?" He nodded. "Yes, but it's closed now. No way to get in." That night I came home late. I was in the kitchen making tea when I heard footsteps upstairs in my bedroom. But I lived alone. I climbed the stairs slowly. No one. Just my bedroom door, slightly open. I shut it, came back down. But this time, from under the stairs, it came a low laugh. Not a child's giggle. An older woman's laugh. Soft, empty. I stepped closer. "Who's there?" No answer. Just the sound of breathing. Slow, wet, human. I pulled the curtain aside. Darkness. Then something gleamed. An eye. Still, staring right at me. I jumped back, spilling my cup of tea. Turned on the flashlight. Nothing. The eye was gone. Only the carpet was slightly damp, and the air smelled faintly, like an old perfume, the same scent my mother used to wear. The next morning, I touched the wall inside that space. The wood felt loose. I pushed it gently. It shifted. Behind it was a gap. Cold air seeped through. I bent down to look. About 5 feet below, there was a small room. Broken furniture, rotten wood, torn pieces of clothing scattered everywhere. I shone my light down. On the wall, someone had written, "Greater than, I'm still here." I slammed the panels shut, then sat on my bed all night, those words echoing inside my head. The next day, I called a worker. "Seal that space completely," I told him. He examined it and said, "Ma'am, it opens from the inside. No point sealing it from above. Just do whatever you can," I said. By evening, the space was closed off. I finally felt I could breathe again. But that night, as I was heading to bed, I heard thuds on the stairs, like someone climbing from below. I turned on the light. The sound stopped. I went to the kitchen for water, and when I turned back, the sealed section beneath the stairs was bulging outward, like something was pushing from the other side. I froze, and then, from inside, a faint whisper, "Why did you close my home?" My hands trembling, I grabbed a small Quran and began reciting. The whisper stopped. But after that night, every single night at exactly 3:13 a.m., I'd hear a cough. Always the same sound. Never earlier, never later. Sometimes after the cough, the same whisper, greater than, "See? You looked." I don't live in that house anymore. It's been 2 years, but even now, whenever I pass a staircase, my heart starts racing. And last week, when I moved into my new apartment, the movers asked me, "Ma'am, where should we keep this blue carpet?" I froze. "I never owned that," I said. One of them replied casually, "It was already there, under the stairs." That night I couldn't sleep. At exactly 3:13 a.m., the door creaked open on its own, and from the dark hallway, a voice whispered softly, "Now it's your turn. See? You looked." I've always loved mirrors, ever since I was a child. My mother used to say, "Don't stare into the mirror for too long, sweetheart. Sometimes the things you're not supposed to see start seeing you instead." I used to laugh, but now I don't. It happened a few years ago when I worked at a fashion store. My job was simple. Keep the displays tidy, fold the clothes, and take care of the store's highlight, the mirrored room. It was the try-on room, covered with mirrors, from floor to ceiling, on every wall. When someone walked in, they saw themselves from every angle. Beautiful, endless reflections. At least that's how it looked. But soon I realized, not every reflection in that room was mine. The first strange thing happened one afternoon. I was cleaning the mirrored room. It was empty. I went inside, wiping one mirror after another, and then my heart stopped. In the reflection behind me, someone was standing. I turned around. No one. Looked back into the mirror. Empty again. I laughed nervously. Light trick. Just light. But it wasn't. Every evening when I turned off the lights before closing, the mirrors in that room stayed foggy, as if someone had breathed on the glass from inside. I cleaned them, but the mist never fully went away. One night after everyone had left, I decided to see how the room looked in the dark. I dimmed the lights and stood in the middle, surrounded by dozens of me. For a moment it was mesmerizing. Then I noticed one reflection that wasn't moving. I lifted my hand. All the reflections copied me, except the one on the right. It just stood there, staring. I shifted slightly, and it smiled. I turned around. Nothing. Looked back. It was now standing behind me. The cloth dropped from my hand. I ran out of the room shaking. The security guard asked, "What happened?" I said, "Nothing, just feeling dizzy." And I told no one. The next day, I decided to check the CCTV footage. Each fitting room had a small camera in the corner. I asked the manager for permission, then played the recording. There I was, cleaning, wiping the mirrors. But then, for a split second, the screen showed two figures, dash, dash. Me, and beside me, a woman in white, head bowed. I paused the video. Her face wasn't clear. Her hair covered most of it. But her hands, her fingers weren't straight. They were twisted, bent in impossible angles. I asked the manager quietly, "Who's that?" "Was anyone else there?" He frowned. "You were alone, right?" "No one else went in." I didn't answer. That night, I did something stupid. I went back into the mirrored room, alone, just to prove it was all in my head. I stood in the middle and said, "Who's here?" "Show yourself," my voice echoed back, greater than "show yourself." Show yourself. Dozens of versions of me repeating my own fear. I forced a laugh, but my heart was pounding. I placed my hand on the mirror. Cold. Then suddenly, something from the other side grabbed my hand. I screamed, pulled back. The mirror cracked slightly and a thin red line appeared on my skin. I ran out of the room. When I came back with others, the mirror was perfectly fine. But on the floor, there were faint smudges, handprints leading into the mirror. The next morning, I submitted my resignation. The manager asked, "Why?" I said quietly, "The mirrored room isn't right." He sighed. "We've shut it down anyway. Yesterday, the cleaner got hurt too." He said someone locked the door from the inside. I looked down and said nothing. I went home. For a week, everything was normal. Then one night, as I was brushing my hair, the mirror in my bedroom fogged up. I wiped it and saw her standing behind me. Same woman, white dress, head bowed, those twisted fingers. And then she spoke, softly like she was breathing the words, greater than, "You called me, so I came." I screamed and turned around. Nothing. When I looked back, the mirror cracked down the middle, a single thin line. And inside that crack, it wasn't my eye looking back. It was hers, still, silent, alive. I took the mirror down that morning and threw it away. But since that night, whenever I stand in front of any mirror, something feels wrong. My reflection moves a second late. My lips move, and then hers. Sometimes she smiles when I don't. And when I step back, she doesn't. I've removed every mirror from my room now, but the front camera of my phone, that's a mirror too, isn't it? Last night I was on a video call. The person on the other end suddenly froze. I asked, "What happened?" And he said, "There's a woman behind you. She's looking at you." I hung up immediately. Since then, whenever I look at any screen, my phone, my laptop, a window, I don't see my own eyes anymore. I see hers. And when I move closer, she whispers softly, greater than, "Come back to the room of mirrors. You promised." I was never afraid of hostel life, but room number 309 changed that. I was new to the place. 4 floors, old damp walls, corridors echoing with laughter, yelling boys. Just another noisy hostel, except the far end of the 3rd floor. It always felt heavier, like the air itself didn't move there. They gave me my key. The warden hesitated for a moment, then said, "Son, if you ever feel uncomfortable, you can move downstairs." I laughed. "Uncomfortable? Why?" He didn't answer, just walked away. Room 309 was simple. 2 beds, a study table, and a half-frosted window. My roommate Ahmed was already there. He said quietly, "I don't talk much. I'm just here to study." I shrugged. Fine by me. The first 2 nights were normal, but the 3rd night, something changed. Around midnight, I heard a knock on the window. I froze. The window was shut tight. Outside, nothing. I asked Ahmed, "Did you hear that?" He said, eyes still down, It happens every night. I frowned. Someone's pranking us? He replied softly, no, the room calls people. I laughed nervously. You're joking, right? He didn't laugh. I'm warning you. That night I couldn't sleep. His words kept looping in my head. The room calls people. The next night I decided to stay awake. If someone knocked again, I'd catch them. Around 12:45, right on time, I jumped up, grabbed my phone light, and aimed it at the window. Nothing outside, but on the glass, 3 faint finger lines drawn from the inside. My chest tightened. I looked at Ahmed. He was lying still, eyes shut. You don't hear this? He murmured. I'm used to it. Don't look again. I couldn't sleep after that. When I finally calmed down, I heard a faint rustling under my bed. I bent down. An old notebook was lying there. I opened the first page. It read, if you're reading this, you're new to room 309. A chill ran through me. Next page. When the window knocks, don't look. If you do, don't say your name. On the third page, a name was crossed out. Ali Hassan, 2020. Below it, he spoke. I slammed the notebook shut, didn't sleep that night. Morning came. Ahmed was packing his bag. Where are you going? I asked. My course is over, he said. But you said you still had 2 months left. He looked at me with tired eyes. Some rooms make you older faster. Then he left. That night I was alone. The silence was loud. At midnight, tap, tap, tap. Again. I pulled the blanket over my head, but curiosity, it's a dangerous thing. I peeked up. This time there were 4 finger lines on the glass. I walked to the window slowly, opened it. Cold air rushed in, and there right in front of me stood a figure. The face was pale and blurred, eyes hollow like a reflection without light. Before I could scream, it raised a finger to its lips and whispered, "Don't speak! I already know your name." I stumbled back, grabbed the door handle. It wouldn't turn. Power went out. The room went black. Just the sound of breathing, then the rustling again, from under the bed. I knelt down. The notebook had opened on its own. A new line was written inside. Name, Haris, date, tonight. My scream stuck in my throat. I pulled the door with all my strength. It flung open. I ran straight to the warden's office. He looked alarmed. What happened? I said, something's in 309. He sighed. We know. We tried to close that room, but every year someone new moves in. Last year, a student's records disappeared entirely. I whispered, Ahmed. He blinked. Who's Ahmed? No one has been assigned to that room in 2 years. My blood froze. I've been living with him for 2 weeks. The warden just stared. I went back upstairs. Ahmed's bed, empty. Notebook, gone. Window, wide open. I handed the key back and switched rooms to 310, right across the hall. That night was peaceful. Until around 1 a.m., I heard footsteps in the corridor. Opened my DoorDash. It was empty. Only room 309's door stood half open, air flowing from within. I aimed my flashlight and saw a sentence scrawled on the wall in black marker. Changing rooms doesn't change your name. I left that hostel the next day. It's been 3 years now. I have a job, a new apartment, but some nights when everything's quiet, I still hear that knock on my window. Tap, tap, tap. And sometimes when I'm writing in my notebook, a faint line appears at the bottom of the page on its own. Room number, 309. Haris is still here. I was never the kind of person who liked old things. To me, antiques were just broken pieces of time, reminders of people and moments long gone. But that day in a dusty old antique shop, something caught my eye. A small wall clock. Its wooden frame was worn, its brass pendulum still, and carved on the top was a name, E. Rahman, 1896. The shopkeeper said, "Sir, this clock is special, but if you buy it, you'll have to return it one day." I laughed. Greater than why? Is it haunted? He lowered his voice. Greater than, no, sir. It just comes back on its own. I smiled, thought it was a joke, and bought it. I didn't know I had just made a deal with time itself. At home, I cleaned the clock and hung it on the wall. When the pendulum moved for the first time, a strange calm filled the room. That soft tick-tock felt almost alive, like a heartbeat. For the first few nights, everything was fine. I'd look at it and feel oddly peaceful, but on the fifth night, things changed. When the clock struck 12, it struck 13. I frowned, checked the hands, and they had stopped. Then the minute hand began to move backward. I thought, mechanical fault, so I turned it off. Next morning, it worked perfectly again. That night, I stayed up late, staring at it. Around 2 a.m., the clock began to tick on its own. The pendulum swung slowly, and from inside came a faint knocking, as if something was moving inside the wood itself. I leaned closer, and a whisper came through, greater than, do you want to turn time back? I froze. Silence. I told myself I was imagining it. The next day, even my wristwatch began stopping randomly. My phone battery died faster than usual, and every time I looked at the clock, its hands were stuck at 3:15. I joked to a friend, greater than, looks like my time stopped. He laughed, greater than, just hope it doesn't start running backward. That night when I came home, the house was dark except for the sound of the clock. Tick, tock. I turned on the light. The pendulum was swinging again. Behind the glass, a thin mist was forming, and within that mist, a face appeared. Faded, still, breathing. Its eyes met mine. Then it spoke. Greater than, time is yours. You just don't know it yet. I screamed, tore it off the wall, smashed it to the floor. Glass shattered, the pendulum stopped. I threw every piece outside. But the next morning, the clock was back on the wall, clean, untouched, showing 8:10. Fear crept in. I went back to the antique shop. The shopkeeper looked at me with tired eyes. Greater than, sir, I told you. It always comes back. I said, take it. I don't want it. He shook his head. You can't. Once you share time with it, you never escape it. This clock doesn't tell time. It devours it. I didn't believe him, but that night proved him right. After midnight, the air went still. The clock struck 13 again. Each chime made my heartbeat skip. Then my phone rang. No number. Just a name on the screen. A. Rahman. I answered. The same whisper said, greater than, time is running out, unless you run out first. I dropped the phone. The ticking grew louder, faster. Tick, 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 tick. The hands spun wildly backward. The pendulum swung violently. My shadow stretched across the wall, as if time itself was pulling away from me. I ripped the clock off again and smashed it. This time, mist poured out of it, and from the mist stepped a man. Myself, he smiled. Greater than, now you understand. You're not living in time. Time is living in you. Every second you breathe, I breathe for you. I ran to the door. It wouldn't open. Everything froze. Only the clock ticked. Each tick felt heavier until I collapsed into darkness. When I woke, I was in a hospital bed. A nurse said, you had a heart attack. You were out for 3 days, I asked, trembling. Greater than, what time is it? She smiled. Greater than, it's 8:10 a.m. My body went cold. When I got home, the wall was empty. The clock was gone. I thanked God, thinking it was over. A week later, a parcel arrived, so no return address. Inside was the same clock, but now carved into the top was a new name. T. Khan, 2025. My name. I threw it outside, but that night it hung above my bed again. Its hands moved on their own. With every tick, I felt myself grow older, my breath slower. When it struck 12, I looked in the mirror. My hair was turning white. Dark circles under my eyes. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. Then the clock whispered, greater than, you borrowed time. Now time takes you. I left everything. The house, the city, my job. But no matter where I go, I still hear that sound. Tick, tock, tick, tock. sometimes not from a clock, sometimes from my dreams. And tonight, as I write this, my watch has stopped again. 3:15. On its glass, written in a faint hand, are the words, "Greater than your turn now." I've always loved water. For me, it was peace, healing. But sometimes even peace hides fear. And I learned that one night, when the water spoke to me. It was the week I moved into a new apartment. The building was old but clean. My flat was on the 4th floor. From the balcony, I could see the hills and below a small swimming pool. At night, when everyone slept, I used to sit out there and watch the moonlight ripple on the surface of the water. It became my habit, but now that habit feels like a punishment. The first night I stayed alone, I couldn't sleep. Around midnight, I opened the window. The water below was perfectly still. Then I saw a small ripple form. I thought, just the wind. But then I heard it, a voice, faint, broken. "Aisha?" I froze as the sound came from under the water. I leaned over the railing, staring into the pool. No one there. The surface calm again, but the shimmer moved, like something alive. I told myself, "You're just tired. You imagined it." I shut the window and went to bed. The next night it happened again, but this time clearer. "Aisha, come down." I covered my ears, but the sound didn't stop. It wasn't outside anymore. It was inside my head. I turned off the tap, shut the door, but somewhere, somehow, I could still hear the faint drip of water. Tap, 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 like it was breathing. The next morning I went downstairs. The watchman was cleaning near the pool. I asked, "Was anyone here last night?" He looked startled. "No, ma'am. The pool's been closed for years." "Why?" I asked. He lowered his voice. "A girl drowned here 3 years ago. Since then, people say the water speaks." I felt my stomach twist. That night, I promised myself I wouldn't look at the pool again. But you know what kills us more than fear? Curiosity. On the 5th night, when the moon was half hidden, I couldn't resist. I stepped onto the balcony again. The water shimmered gently, and in the center, a small circle of light glowing from below. I leaned closer. Inside the light, a face. Long hair floating around it, eyes wide open, and from her lips, bubbles rose as she whispered, "Aisha, help me! Pull me out!" I tried to scream, but the sound stuck in my throat. The water moved with my name, like it had come alive. Then suddenly, everything went still. I ran inside, slammed the door, my heart pounding like it would break through my ribs. The next morning, there were drops of water on the balcony floor. I touched them. Not wet, but cold. Colder than ice. Like the touch of something that shouldn't be alive. When I told my neighbor about it, she went pale. She said, "You know, there was another Aisha who lived here before you." "The same flat." I froze. "What do you mean?" She nodded slowly. "Yes, she's the one who drowned. People say she used to talk to someone near the pool every night. Then one night she went down and never came back." My hands felt numb. That night I couldn't sleep. Around 3 in the morning I heard water running. It came from the bathroom. I got up, opened the door. The tap was off, but the sink was filling up by itself. Water rising silently, then bubbles, and from beneath a whisper, "I'm alone. You're alone too." I stepped back, shut the tap, but it didn't matter. As I turned around, a breath brushed my ear. "Be friends with the water. Forever." I fell sick after that. High fever for 2 days. My neighbor turned off the water supply completely. When I woke up again, the balcony door was open. The pool shimmered below, inviting, calm. Something inside me moved. I got up barefoot, still weak. But I walked down the stairs toward the pool. The air was cold, the floor slippery, but I couldn't stop. The water waited for me. I knelt by the edge. It looked peaceful. I reached out, and something held my hand. Cold, but human. I gasped, but no sound came. The surface broke, and a pull dash. sharp, heavy, dragged me down. When I opened my eyes again, I was lying on the ground. The watchman was standing over me. "Ma'am, you fell into the pool. You're lucky to be alive." I whispered, "I didn't fall." He stayed silent for a long time, then said quietly, "When we found the other girl." Her hand was stretched out like she was trying to hold someone's. Back in my apartment, my clothes smelled of wet earth. I took a shower, but when I turned the tap, the water spoke again. A faint murmur, "Come back." I turned it off, held my breath. I knew I couldn't stay. The next morning, I packed my things. As I was leaving, a bottle fell off the table. Water spilled across the floor, and in it, clear as handwriting, were the words, "This place is yours." I left the building that day. New city, new home. But wherever there's water, I still hear it. In the bathroom, in the rain, even in silence. "Aisha, come down." Last week, I went to take a bath. The water was clear at first, then slowly turned blue. I shut the tap, but it kept flowing. Bubbles rose to the surface, and then I heard it. A voice I'll never forget. "I'm back. Now I don't drink water anymore. I'm scared to bathe, but the body needs it, right? So when I sleep, sometimes I dream. I see a world under the water, soft, endless, glowing. The girl is there, smiling. Her hair floats like silk, and she reaches out her hand. Come, don't go back up. Here, there's no time, only peace." Then I wake up, heart racing, room dark, and from the bathroom I hear the faint dripping. Tap, tap. I know it's not just water, it's her, calling me back. Silence. Then the faint sound of water running, a breath catches, a single exhale. I used to live in a building, 5 floors, 3 elevators, and a strange silence on every level. The elevators were numbered 5, 6, and 7. Lift number 7 was the newest one. They said it was the emergency lift, but the odd thing was, no one ever used it, not even the watchman. I was new there. No one told me much, just that lift 7 stayed locked after midnight. I laughed and said, "Do elevators sleep too?" The first night passed quietly. The second night, when I came home late from work, lifts 5 and 6 were off. Only number 7's light was on, a small red bulb flickering above the doors. I looked closer. The lift was active. I pressed the button. The doors opened. Inside, complete darkness. Only a faint light seeped in from below. I hesitated, then stepped inside. The walls were rusty, the air heavy with the smell of old metal, as if no one had touched it for years. I pressed the button for the 5th floor. The doors closed and the lift began to move, but not up, down. I hit stop instantly. Nothing happened. It kept descending. No sound, no vibration, just quiet and that red light growing dimmer and dimmer. Panicking, I pressed the emergency button. No response, and then suddenly, it stopped. The doors slid open, but it wasn't the basement. It was a long corridor, dim bulbs swinging from the ceiling, wet stains crawling down the walls, and a black, muddy floor. I didn't step out. I just leaned forward and looked. At the far end was a door. Faded letters read, "Maintenance only." I blinked. The lift lights flickered off. When they came back on, the doors were closed again, and the lift started rising. When it stopped, the doors opened, dash, dash. But the walls outside had the same damp stains I'd seen down below, which meant I hadn't returned to where I'd started. I ran out looking for the stairs and started climbing up. Every floor, locked doors, lights dead, and on each wall, one word painted, level 7. I climbed faster. 1, 2, 3 floors. But everywhere, the same word. When my breath began to break, I looked at the number plates beside each door. All of them said 7. No matter how high I went, it was always the 7th floor. I pulled out my phone. No signal. Battery 3%. I looked toward the elevator. Its door was open again. I thought maybe that's the way out. So I stepped in. The door shut. This time it started going down again. much deeper. On the digital display, numbers flashed in red, -1, -2, -3, until it stopped. The doors opened, only darkness outside, and a faint sound, like someone breathing. I raised my phone's light. There, a shadow. Human-shaped, but no face, just two hollow eyes, and steam drifting out of its mouth. It whispered, "You shouldn't have gone up." I stumbled back, pressed every button. Nothing. The doors began to close. But just before they did, that shadow's hand slipped inside. The doors froze, it leaned in. The air turned icy, and near my ear a whisper, "This lift is yours now." I shut my eyes and pushed with all my strength. The door slammed. The lift jerked violently, and then silence. When I opened my eyes, I was lying on the floor. The doors were open and the security guard stood outside, pulling me out. He asked, "What were you doing in lift 7? It's been shut down for a year." I screamed, "No, it moved." I was inside, it was working. He stared at me confused. "Sir," he said, "that lift was sealed last year. After an engineer got trapped and died inside, it hasn't been touched since." I ran downstairs. There it was. Lift 7, its doors chained and covered in rust. I reached into my pocket. My phone was soaked, and on the screen a single line glowed. Level 7, access granted. I threw the phone away, moved out the next day. But even now, whenever I step into any elevator, my hand dash, on its own, reaches for the 7th button. And even if I stop myself, the lift still halts there. The doors open slowly, and beyond the light, from somewhere deep in the dark, a quiet voice whispers, "This lift is yours."